All right, dive right into it. Thank you once again for coming to Train the Trainer series. This is the third of a series that's going to continue throughout the year. We have Stephanie Aguirre here tonight. She's the director of HR for the Refinery Hotel, and she's going to be doing a presentation on sexual harassment. And then we'll do usually we do a recap to start, but we're going to try to get her out because she's been nice enough to donate some of her time. We'll do a recap from the previous classes that we've done, and then Rob will take us through some Department of Health, sanitation, FDNY stuff. So, but Stephanie, dive right into it.
Thank you. So yes, right now I'm the director or the HR manager at Refinery. Previously I was at Highgate Hotel with some of their key properties at Row and Michelangelo, things like that. And this is the main presentation that we used for Train the Trainer types of sessions regarding harassment and discrimination. If at any point you have any questions, please let me know and I'll stop. So the most important part is everyone understanding the different types and the classified or protected classes within harassment and discrimination, and your responsibility as managers or directors of your department or whatever it is exactly here. So it's not just about sexual harassment. There are many different types of harassment, so we are going to go through those so you understand all the different types that you may encounter. So these are the protected classes in which someone can say that they're being discriminated or treated differently or retaliated against for these. So it includes age, disability, national origin, race, color, religion, or religious creed, and sex. And it may also include, depending on certain conditions, marital status, medical conditions, and sexual orientation. So those are also things that need to be taken into account when it comes to harassment or discrimination. So as of recently, we've been hearing a lot sexual harassment, but it's not the only one. Right now, there's been an uptick, obviously, because of everything going on. Sexual harassment is the most popular one right now, but there are different trends throughout the year. So after 9/11, the most popular one was discrimination, religious discrimination. So it's important to know all of them because at any given time, different ones become more popular. So there are a lot of different things that sexual harassment, the repercussions of sexual harassment. So what it does to your employees, it creates absenteeism, low productivity, low morale, high employee turnover, and tarnished image and brand, which as of lately is a lot more detrimental than it was in the past when this was created. And so to the company itself, may not be cold hard cash exactly, but it costs a lot of money litigation-wise to the employer, but also to the, later we'll speak about who is liable depending on each case. So to protect yourself as well, to know who is responsible at the end of the day and when it becomes your responsibility to come forward. So what is workplace harassment? Does anyone know or have any definitions that they know of? No? Good, okay, we'll learn. Harassment is behavior that bullies, intimidates, embarrasses, pressures, or insults others. Harassment in the workplace is always unacceptable. It is also illegal, especially lately. As we get more into detail, it leads to low productivity, low morale, and then we'll get to different types of harassment and discrimination in their definitions. So that's just an overall thing. So perception is reality. So what's important to understand is what you're saying or what your employees are saying to other people where they may not have the intention to be harassing someone or intimidating them. They may not know that that's what they're doing, but the other person is perceiving that to be so, and that is their truth, and that is what will get you into problems later on legally. So it's important for managers or employees to understand that what they say may not always be what they're intending to say is not what's coming across. It's what the employee or whoever is feeling harassed, what they're taking it to be, and that's the reality to them, although it's their perception. This is, an old newspaper slide. It's not too related to this. So what's important for us as managers or directors of any department is to create a culture of respect, of professionalism. So while everyone has different relationships in the workplace, it's important to differentiate relationships outside of the workplace and in the workplace, so that all employees know that this is different territory and that everyone has to act in a certain professional demeanor while they're in work, at work. So the two main types of harassment and the most that you'll hear about is tangible employment action, which is formerly was more popularly known as quid pro quo, and hostile work environment. So tangible employment action result in it's more tangible, so it results in direct things as firing someone, demoting someone, not giving them the promotion. Those that you've been hearing about more recently are tangible employment action, which was formerly quid pro quo, not as popular term now. So more includes hiring, firing, failing to promote, reassigning someone if they don't engage in a certain, you know, if you would ask them to do something they don't engage, then reassigning them or changing them. That's more of the traditional quid pro quo, which is tangible, it's more obvious, you can really distinguish it, compared to a hostile work environment, it's a little less obvious. It is unwelcome conduct, that unreasonably interferes with an employee's work performance and creates an intimidating, hostile work environment. So this is left a little bit more open-ended. It's not as tangible as the other ones, and it's not as obvious as firing or hiring or moving someone. So it's a little bit harder to prove. But it is very easily, when someone says that they're feeling like the work environment has become hostile, it's something to take seriously, because it is something that they can use later on. And then combining it with a protected category as gender, race, age, religion. So if they say they're being treated, their work environments become hostile because of one of those things, and that's where you can get in trouble legally. So some examples are severe, pervasive conduct, either verbal or physical, that both objectively and subjectively creates an intimidating environment. And again, taking into account what I said before about perception is reality, so you may not perceive that you're creating a hostile work environment, but the employee or whoever's feeling harassed may feel that that's going on. Another, it's obviously unwelcome. So unwelcome behavior is behavior that's not welcome, not solicited, and not wanted by the offended person. So while you may perceive your behavior to be friendly or harmless and you don't think that it's a big deal, that other person really may be offended, and later on it comes back as a much bigger issue than you may have originally thought it was. Any questions about that specifically? Any type of behavior? So some questions to pose to, I know this is a train-the-trainer type of session, so to put it into perspective for the managers is, the comment that you're saying or the environment you're creating, is this something that you would want your spouse or child or sibling to be subjected to? So that's kind of a meter for, is what you're saying truly appropriate in this environment? And so these are some of the questions that you may want to ask them for them to be thinking a little bit differently about how they're acting in the workplace. So would I be comfortable seeing my behavior published in the newspaper or on television? Could my behavior offend or hurt other members of my work group? Things like that are important to kind of shift their mind that this isn't the normal place for banter, joking around. Now you're in a professional work environment, to be thinking of those things. So stepping back and thinking twice about things that may go too far. So, like I mentioned before, protected classes are gender, race, religion, disability, age, national origin, or color. So these are the things that people can say that they're being harassed for or treated differently or retaliated against for these things, and they are protected. So when it comes down to if anyone is sued or anything like that, these are things that they specifically would be targeting. So this is a joke, and obviously this is a much older PowerPoint, so it has some outdated things, but any joke you tell can and will be used against you in a court of law, and it's become more and more true as time has gone on. When this was made, it wasn't as serious as it is now, but it's true that we just need to be more conscious of the things that we're saying in the workplace, and the behaviors that you're showing to the other employees, because it truly does trickle down to the rest of your employees. So this is a good pyramid for everyone to understand the gravity of harassment. So it starts at compliments, consensual relations, then it escalates a little more to occasional or ambiguous conduct, then offensive working environment, verbal conduct, offensive working environment, physical conduct, then quid pro quo, which is the one that we said that's tangible, so you're firing someone or you're retaliating against someone for not participating in whatever behavior you offered, and then obviously the most serious ones are battery, rape, and assault, and things like that. So verbal conduct includes, and some examples are, racist comments, sexist comments, boasting of sexual conquest, comments about body, harassing, telephone calls, lewd comments, nicknames. I know that's sometimes popular, but it just creates an environment where people feel very comfortable with themselves, and it lends itself to blurring the lines in the workplace. So those are things that I would kind of shy away from doing when you are in a professional work environment. Physical conduct, cuddling, entering restroom of opposite sex, exposing oneself. Some of these are pretty obvious, but surprisingly enough, and a lot of times we see things like this and no one thinks it's a big deal because it's been going on for so long. But that's why it's important to bring it up or to have these sessions so people can take a look at how they've been behaving, and if these things can lend themselves to these behaviors, and really may not be as aggressive as these. So, you know, something that also is creating a work environment that can make people uncomfortable: cartoons, calendars, graffiti, literature. So since I'm in the hospitality industry, a lot of times I would see things like this when I enter an engineering department. You'd see calendars and things like that. And it's not because, you know, I walk in and I'm extremely offended by that, but what it is that it's allowing an inappropriate thing to be shown, and by other employees seeing me be okay with that, then they think that that type of behavior, that type of environment is okay. So it's our responsibility to take it down, make it known to other employees that this is not appropriate behavior, whether it be with something like this or something said. Really, everyone's always watching, so it's important to notice these things. Photographs, although they may be silly, or silly calendars and things like that, it's creating a very gray area, when really right now is the time to be very black and white with your harassment and discrimination policies. So this has become a lot more prominent and a lot more dangerous as of recently. Obviously, everything, your emails and things like that are being tracked, and when it comes down, if you, for whatever reason, end up in litigation, that could be brought up. So please be aware, and that your managers are aware, that email is very easily accessible, and that anything that you write in the email can be used and will be brought up. So the internet is very dangerous for things like this, and it lends itself to people thinking they're not at work, they can do things like this, or you're outside of work, so the rules don't apply. But if you still work with each other, the rules still do apply, and it's being monitored. So personal liability, and you guys may have a different policy than we do, but for us, individual managers and supervisors can be held liable from a lot of state and local laws, so that will apply to you guys. But depending on what your policy is, for us, and we've spoken to many different, like ADP and things like that, and they've told us the minute that any member of management is made aware of a claim against the company, you're automatically liable. So the moment that any part of management, so even a low-level manager, that they're told that an employee goes and tells them about a claim that they have, you're automatically liable for that, and it's on you. You guys are on the hook, because they can say that management knew about it and they didn't do anything about it. So if no one up top knows, because no one alerted the proper people, you're really in for a big mess later on. So that's why it's important for everyone to know and for it to trickle down. At the moment you're made aware of a claim or a complaint, that everyone alerts the proper people so you guys can take the proper steps moving forward. So failing to prevent and report harassment exposes you to liability. This is a quick game that,
You breezed right over the referee. That was probably the best thing.
where is it?
You made
You
the
make the
call.
call. And it's true, it's really up to managers and directors to truly take the time to educate the employees and for them to know how seriously you are taking it so they take it seriously as well. And right now to have strict policies that they know how to report a practice or a claim or anything like that, so that they know who they can go to. So I'm assuming it's your HR or whoever it is here, so they can, because the first thing that they're going to say is that they didn't know who to go to or things like that. So make sure that you have the proper processes in place, and that anytime you are alerted about something, that you do take the time to let the proper people know, so it can be addressed immediately. The longer that you wait, the longer it becomes a bigger issue, and the more time goes by with you not being able to investigate. This is a quick game that I don't want to waste your time with, but these are just some examples. A manager suggests a room attendant to compete in a wet t-shirt contest at a corner bar. So while it's funny and at the time not be a big deal, this is a level 2, and there are different levels of inappropriate behavior. So this is something that we put to scale so managers know, okay, this is inappropriate, that's not appropriate. But it's inappropriate and it doesn't seem like a big deal, but with so many small comments like that, it really does add up. And those can be brought against you as well. So Henry, who was a security guard, tells an off-color dumb blonde joke. So not a big deal, you think, but in a combination with many other comments, it could become a big deal later on, because someone can say they're being harassed if they're one of the protected classes. So this is a little more severe. At a company party, an employee grabs the breast of a female coworker. Obviously, it's a big deal. It's also taking into account with quid pro quo, where it's a lot more tangible, and you're able to know that it's quid pro quo, is remembering your position within your company. So being of high position puts you at a different level than other people, and they automatically feel intimidated by you, and that's automatically creates for an unlevel playing field where people can say that they feel intimidated and they're threatened by things you may be proposing, and comments that you may be making. So just your position of authority within your organization, you have to take that into account with the comments that you're making, because they're perceived very differently depending on what that person is. So the director of a department speaking to a line level associate making a joke, an inappropriate joke, can make me feel a lot more intimidated than it was one of their fellow coworkers, line level associates. So also taking into account your position in the organization is very important, remembering that at all times. So like I mentioned before, electronic, everything, emails, everything you're doing online, make sure that that they understand that although it's outside of work, it can still be used because you do still work together. So also when an employee comes to you regarding a claim or something that you feel is going on, or a complaint, to remember not to retaliate, or the next steps you have to make sure to include the proper people. So for our organization, it's including HR, so the proper steps are taken. And we can investigate appropriately to make sure that no retaliation is going on, and that confidentiality is maintained, and that we're following proper procedure to make sure that it doesn't get to a much bigger scale. So recap of responsibilities and obligations for yourself. Like I mentioned before, make sure that managers or whoever is managing most of the employees knows at the moment that they're made aware of a claim that they're automatically putting the company and themselves at risk for liability. a lot of times it may not just be the company that's liable, it can also be the employee themselves that are being, they're allegedly harassing someone else, they can also be liable for it as well. Employees should refrain from activity that could be construed as harassing towards someone. Employees should not engage in conduct with others that could be perceived as hostile toward a protected class, which I mentioned before, by third-party employees, and employees should cooperate and be honest in investigations concerning alleged discrimination or harassment. So don't presume those who can do something to stop the harassment are aware of it. So a lot of times people will say during investigations, well, someone was already aware and they didn't do anything about it, and then everyone forgets about it because they assume that someone of higher authority already knew and didn't take the proper steps. Like I said before, you make the call, you make sure that you stop, you put a hold to it, and make sure that everyone is aware what steps have been taken to rectify the situation and how to move forward with the claim. So the company's role, just what you guys can do to assure yourselves that you've taken the proper steps, that everyone's aware of your policies, is to hand down, make sure everyone is aware of your harassment and discrimination policies, effective training for both supervisors and employees, which is what you're doing, which is great, an effective reporting mechanism that they understand who and where and what's a safe place to report to, and prompt and effective investigation of complaints. So timing is really crucial in these complaints because everything needs to change as more people get involved. So the quicker you know, the quicker you can be proactive about it and handle it as best as possible. And corrective action that prevents further harassment and retaliation. Retaliation is really important. A lot of times people will come forward and say that they complained about someone and then they felt that they were retaliated against, and that just makes it a lot worse. And it's hard to prove, but at the same time, it's important for the managers to know that they're being as unbiased as possible when these situations do come forward. So you must comply with the policy and insist your colleagues do so as well. Enforce policies, report any observations or complaints, report and manage workplace romances. So whatever your policy is on that, make sure it's being strictly adhered to. So there's no gray area with consensual and non-consensual things. Do not attempt to manage claims. HR must be involved. So that's for our organization. I don't know if that's what you guys have going on for yours. And while you can, it's important to keep confidential in any claims or complaints, but it's important to not always promise it because you can't investigate without telling anyone. So make sure that you let them know that it's on a need-to-know basis. So we'll be talking to people that need to know about the case, and it will stay confined to as many little people as you can. So take all complaints seriously, even if you are the target. So if you find yourself that an employee is saying this against yourself, make sure you get someone else to be a witness and that you listen and take swift steps to fix it. So for us, it's involved human resources immediately, and some of the things already mentioned. Do not prejudge the outcome. And when you're asking them more questions, to make sure that you're not leading them to answer the way that you think that things happen. So, the employer must take a prompt remedial action. So that's really important. I know I mentioned it a few times, but failure to take action, again, puts you in a place of liability for your company and for yourself. So for the employer side, you're not necessarily obligated to terminate the harasser or to remove him or her from the workplace. It may be enough to separate them, but while you are investigating, it is important to keep them separated until you have come to the outcome of the investigation and you've let them know what has come of it. And then you can, as long as you make sure that the immediate complaint has stopped, then you can assume your investigation and then move forward. So make sure not to punish the victim or them to perceive that they're being punished against for coming forward. So make sure that you follow up with the complaint with either your legal team or supervisors and your HR. Monitor the situation to ensure that it's still not occurring and whatever you put in place is effective and it's not still happening. And then consider appropriate training for team members. So if you find that it is coming up a few times, then maybe it's time to ramp up the training and the policies and have people sign off on things to make sure that they are aware. Retaliation. So it's really important if someone comes forward that you don't retaliate against them. Like I said earlier, it makes it a lot worse when it comes to litigation, that they say that they're being retaliated against as well as being harassed for coming forward. So the goal of any investigation or any time that someone comes forward is to make sure there's no difference between they were treated before or after they came forward with a complaint. So really step back and make sure that you're treating them the same exact way as you were before they complained or before they came forward. That's about it. Any questions?
How liable are we for customer harassment? Because dealing with a alcohol-driven business, flirtations and the risk goes up significantly. So I was wondering where we stand with that.
So can you give me an example?
Well, I mean, if a female is in a bar and guys are, even if it's groping or something like that, but it could just be like a lewd comment. But more severe would be like groping or touching. Obviously, we take measures with our security team, but there could be like a softer harassment where it's more of like just comments over time. We do have regulars, and some of them have the locker room type mentality. And if an employee makes a comment but not necessarily looking to like make an official, I guess my question is, if somebody said, wow, he's being really rude to me, we take action at that point. Is there any further action that we have to take?
Oh no, as long as you make sure that whatever they're complaining about has
Addressed.
come to it's been addressed and it's come to an end, unless, there are more specifics, you should be fine. But it is very different since you're in a bar or a restaurant type of environment. Your legal team should definitely give you a little bit more black and white answers with that one. But as long as you make sure that immediate complaint is addressed.
So would the same exist if two employees were working together and a rude or lewd comment was made and the manager took action immediately, but it wasn't like nothing was filled out, but said, listen, that can't happen again?
Well, I would advise that any conversation of that nature should be written out and should be placed in their file so you know for future reference in case that person that issued it is no longer there for whatever reason, that that maybe this has occurred 3 or 4 times in the past,
Right.
and that maybe this is something that needs to be addressed at a higher level. So yes, 2 employees, if they have fixed the behavior, it should still, I would definitely say, written and be in their file. For us, we're in an environment that we always have to, have witnesses with us when we're taking statements, just to protect yourself. I always advise to, if someone comes to you with a complaint, that you get someone else involved and in the room, so it's not a he said, she said situation at any point. So you let them know, this will stay confidential, but I need to have someone with me as a witness. It's important so then you have 2 people that heard the same story and it can't change later on.
Got it. And then what about outside work harassment? Like if 2 employees were at a bar with each other or out doing something outside of the work area? Is that when the accusation was made the next day?
Well, yeah, it's a little bit of a gray area with a lot of these, so that's why it's important for you guys to have very strict, harassment policies, so they know that what they're doing is frowned upon to begin with, and so they're liable for what goes on outside of work. But is your question, are you liable for that one employee's behavior against the other when they come forward? I guess it depends on where they are, if they're at one of your properties, what initiated it. It really depends. I don't think so, but I would have to look into it further. You need more detail, I think, on that.
What we're liable for is not doing anything.
Okay.
So if somebody brings a complaint to you and you don't do anything, you're liable, right? So that's why it's always important to bubble it up, to bring it up. And when somebody does bring a complaint to you, to take it serious. So that's why you're being shown right away, even the smallest stuff. Because the small stuff, again, perception is the big stuff to them.
Yeah, exactly.
What if we have a situation where, say, it's a female server and there's a table of guys and they make inappropriate comments and the server goes so far to say, I want them kicked out? Is that something that we would have to respond to and like remove a table because they felt harassed? Or is it enough to just place a different server on that? I know it can vary depending on what the comment was or if there was physical activity involved, but if it was a level 1 or 2 comment and the female server is like very adamant about wanting this table removed, is that something we have to pursue?
No, on specific questions like that, yeah, I'm not a legal counsel, so I don't want to give you legal advice on that. But I think what is most important, like you mentioned, is you just taking immediate action. So I think removing her from that table would suffice. But again, I don't know what comment was made, and it depends how threatened she feels by the comment. So it's a few different things. But I think what's important about this is to get the conversation going so you guys can create some guidelines on things like that. So if that happens, what's the proper route to take on that? What's the proper procedure? Because I'm sure you're not the only one that's had that happen. So as long as everyone's on the same page, because the first thing that they'll look at is precedents, what has happened in the past, and is this a practice that you guys have been allowing to occur? And so I think it's you guys.
Yeah, a situation like that is first is removing her from that situation,
Yeah, of course.
or him, and then calming the patrons. If the patrons do not react to that, then they either become more
Yeah, I get that.
or physical.
Yeah, that's rumors like, I don't want them in this building anymore, like just having a
He or she
Yeah.
can't make that determination, because again, it's he said, she said, but you'll be able to make that determination based off of your interaction with them. So it's an answer that can't be answered right now. So as a manager or you're going to be able to go, let me go speak to them and see what's going on. What I need you to do is step off the floor, gather yourself, go into a safe corner and go from there. If she or he are overreacting, then there's no calming that situation down.
It's always safe. It's better to be safe than sorry. So yeah, always take it as a big deal. And you may go to the table and realize that maybe that's not the case, but at least you took swift and remedial action.
My history, if they said such a lewd comment that our servers are that upset about it, they're gonna make the same comment to you.
Right.
Then you're gonna proceed how you're gonna take the necessary steps, right?
So first question is always make sure, how am I stopping this right now? Stop the bleeding. Any other
But then we're dealing with the liability of, do we get physical with these people or don't we? And a lot of times, somebody who's upset mentally might not understand that as well. So.
Well, yeah, things can escalate quickly.
Yeah, exactly.
I have a quick question. Just as far as somebody comes to me with a claim, who am I looping into the group, into what email? You, obviously? Am I just sounding the alarm to everybody, or?
Yeah, I think the best thing is go to your GM and then CC me on it, just so we can then, send it up or strategize what the next step is.
Got it.
So, but yeah, just definitely.
Yeah, I think like chain of command is the best thing, right? So if your GM isn't involved in the harassment, you go to your GM.
Got it.
Yeah.
If your director of operations is involved in the harassment, then you're not going to go to your director of operations.
Obviously, right.
If the ownership's is involved in harassment, you're going to go to your director of operations. There's always someone you can go to in a position of leadership that's going to be able to take action and stop and take the necessary steps to what was discussed here to, you know, put a stop to it or take action or to address, but yeah.
The one thing for us, again, right on the 4 H's, is the humility part, the humble part. So being empathetic and listening straight away. And then saying, okay, would you like me to communicate, you know, where I'm going to have to communicate this to my superiors and, you know, give me some time to, you know, work on this. And then going from there. So we'll be in touch very shortly.
Yeah, don't feel like you have to provide an answer right away and like your verdict at that moment because they're sitting right in front of you. That's exactly the right thing to say. Just say, we'll definitely look into it as soon as possible. We'll get back to you and then you will learn
Got it.
from people.
Thank
And
you.
they should also avoid saying like, yeah, this guy, like,
Right.
it should just be like,
Take the
okay, I hear you, yes, I know, I'm so sorry that happened, let me, you know, or
Yeah.
whatever, but just empathetic, and then bring it up versus being like, God, Brendan, every single time. Every time I do this.
Definitely.
And where does the accused party, where do they fall into this, in the training aspect of this? So you have a complaint where someone on your staff complains about someone else on your staff, and it's going to take, you know, some time in the investigation. And if there's no way to conclusively prove one way or the other, where does the person who's been complained against fall into this, and what rights do they have?
What rights do they have? I mean, it really depends on what you guys decide. So a lot of companies will take the stance that you'll suspend someone for further investigation. So you may be suspended until they finish the investigation and then they bring you back. Is that your question? And then you may be separated from working with them moving forward or whatever they reach. If they find that it's true. Like I said before, they don't have to terminate you, but as long as they're ensuring that it's not going to continue to happen, and that you guys are in two different places, then but what's really important is making sure you guys have a policy for that and that you strictly adhere to it for every case that you get, and that you're being fair to every single case that you get, and that the same outcome occurs. And I know they may have different circumstances, but with having strict policies, it's good because then you don't have space for so much gray. And so if you get accused for something and they terminate you, to make sure that the next person, and they prove that against you, so the next person that they have the same evidence for, that they terminate as well. Because you need to make sure that you're consistent with what you're doing and consistent with the punishment or your judgment on what you do with each person.
That's why the disciplinary action forms are really important, even though we could have 10 witnesses, but for that one time that they might sneak a drink, that's a level 4 for us, drinking, right? Intoxication, that's a level 4 for us that they could be fired for, right? Stealing, level 4, they could be fired for. Lateness is, we have kind of if they call, there's subways, all those things, so it's building that case that we always have the case that this person may or may not be able to move on with us as an employee, but we want to be able to have that file and keep track of that.
One other important thing that I think you touched on is we call it the safety in numbers, where if you're going to write somebody up for disciplinary action, they need to have 2 managers there just to make sure that there's no he said, she said, or someone's like, oh, this guy's picking on me. Like, it's cut and dry, you have a witness, form filled out, whether they sign it or not, but you always have someone with them. We make sure of that because it's just easier to make sure that there's no gray area or someone's claiming they were picked on or it wasn't appropriate action.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah, that's a great practice to have. You have to, it's perfect that you have more than one person there. And even if they ask to not have someone there, still bring someone in. Say, maybe you don't want that person. Can I have this other person here to sit in with us? They'll maintain it confidential. If you're having an issue with that, I really wouldn't sit down with someone if you don't have someone else present to be your witness. For any for any conversation, also to make sure that everything is in writing. So while you may not think it's a big deal, they're just being accused of a comment, failing to put that in their file in 2 months when it's progressed and they are accused of something that's a little more serious, not having the original thing in their file, you're not building anything. So.
Do you have to let them know when you put it in the file?
No, you don't have to let them know, but for us, we have a form, like a disciplinary form, so they can sign off and they can either refuse to sign or sign it, but they know everything that they're signing is going in their file. But no, we may do note to files, which they may not know go in there, but it's for our future reference to know. Yeah. If it's not severe enough for disciplinary action, maybe a note to file is enough and they don't have to know about that, just for us to keep an eye on something. Which you can most definitely do. And I would suggest.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Really appreciate
That
it.
was terrific.
Of course. Anything,
Good job.
any questions at all? No, we're good? Okay.
We might have follow-up questions.
All right, let me know. I'll gladly help. It was my pleasure.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. That was informative.
One was the word.
Yeah.
So takeaways?
I got the comment about, would this be a behavior that would fly with your spouse, your daughter, and then the other one about how would this fly being published in a newspaper or on television? I was like, ooh, those are good, like benchmarks. Those were good for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hard to live by in a bar setting sometimes.
Absolutely, yeah.
It is, but you just have to take if someone comes to you, you have to just.
On top.
Over here.
Yeah.
And some of the other things that perception is reality, right? So you always have to take the person who's confiding in you have to take them at face value, and that there's no issue that is small in their eyes if they've taken the time and they've thought about coming to anyone to make a complaint. If our perception is that happens 100 times a day, how can I live my life if I complain about that? That's not their reality. That's not what they're living. So you have to respect that, and you have to go. You immediately start the process of notification and getting the conversations going and preventing that from happening. And you have to act quickly. There's nothing else happening in your life as a restaurant manager that is more important than than acting on that.
Yeah. We, as far as HR goes, we like to handle a lot of this in-house. But from our research with HR, with restaurant groups our size, is they loop in any like third-party HR. They usually say loop in the GM, loop in the manager, and then a director of operations or ownership would be looped in as well. And the biggest thing is just making sure that you're quick to react and being fair to all parties. Fairness is key, because an accusation doesn't mean it's true. So being fair is key. And keeping your own counsel. So if they confide in you, bubble it up, it's going to be confidential on our level, but do not confide down.
Cool.
Cool.
Awesome. So just wanted to do a little recap on the previous 2 classes we had. I think not everybody was here, but the training should have at some point come down the trough. And so the first one we had was Train the Trainer, which was basically setting the groundwork and getting us structure and how we were going to teach our leaders, people that we recognize as the future of company hospitality, and then training it down from there. And we talked about getting more consistent with our pre-shift meetings, which I personally I've noticed walking through the venues. I've seen them going on. I thought they've been great, so great job with that. The shoulders that we've been talking about, I think last week we recapped that and saw some improvement on those and not catching, but I guess the right word is correcting things that we see on the fly that we might normally have had let go. So have you guys seen an increase of positivity with that, or anything that you want to share or bring to the table that has, we talked obviously the shoulder to shoulders and the pre-shifts and, having the consistency with that, but any other things that have helped you out? Thought the wine class that we did, I know you're not going to become a wine expert after an hour and a half class, but I have noticed some upsells, and I think that has to do with you recognizing who your leaders are, who's the top trainer, who's your biggest expert on the wine side, and assigning them to potential buyers, and that's a great connection to have. We had one in Parker and Quinn the other day, and there was a customer that had come in, previously bought a bottle of Emeritus. They put Tony on the table, he got 4. So it was a great testament to show that some of this stuff is working. A combination of 7 rooms, recognizing our customers, as well as combining that with the training that you guys are providing. So I thought that was a good example. That was very obvious.
Yeah, I think with, especially, trademark has been a real focus, like lobby huddles, and it's been also the information flow, but the team building. I feel like there's been a better dynamic between staff just by having that huddle and them talking together every day. It's almost like, here we are, we're a team, let's go through the information, but also like this brings us together, and then accountability. Stephen, what was that special last night? Or let's talk about this stuff, and then there's a much better accountability.
Yeah.
And then you saw some sales.
We purposely elongated our pre-shift. Now I think we have to dial it back a little bit because it's getting too long on certain days, but we even see it manifesting itself in the online reviews a lot. Absolutely. We were saying the other day, I don't want to jinx it now, but this is the longest stretch that I can remember where it's just been all 5 and 4-star reviews.
It's awesome. It's awesome. And also catching the recovery on the spot helps out as well, which that's also, training your staff and giving you the tools to do that. I know I've gotten some feedback from the wine class that it was, it was a good class in general, but like, how do we continue that education so it doesn't fizzle? And what could we do as a company to help facilitate that?
I think it's just us. The wine reps that we have right now at Trademark, we've developed very good relationships with.
Great.
And they're very always gung-ho to just come in and do staff trainings whenever we ask them to. They'll provide us with wine openers for the staff, tasting notes. So I think just communicating amongst each other, like, this guy from Southern's available this day. Maybe it doesn't work for Trademark, but if the roof needs a wine training, just keeping those there.
How often do you guys do that?
Monthly.
You schedule? Is it a scheduled thing, or is it kind of like?
I mean, we've done it a few ways. We've done it on the fly, but we've looped it into the larger staff meetings so that it's a segment of the big staff meeting when we actually close the venue for a couple hours.
One thing that we have to get better on as a group is if you are doing a wine training, send it to everyone and say, hey, we're working on Pinot Noir today. Send your guys over. Mike's like, I got a single malt training going on. Let's get everyone over here that we can just for more information. Because there's a lot of times where, you might have an expert that Mike doesn't know about or vice versa, or Matt's got a guy in Mezcal. So just that information flow of training sessions. And it's like, I feel like every time I'll see a training session one venue and I'm like, shit, how do we not get it out to everyone? But then it becomes a tricky part of, do you make it mandatory, do you not? So it's picking those battles, but you'll find out who your leaders are, who's really engaged by who shows up to another venue for a training that's not Louis XIII. They always show up for that.
It's a good one to show up.
Might as well.
I had a couple of things that we should review as a group. Onboarding process, right? One of the first things we spoke about at the first trainer was that training starts at hiring, right? Have you guys, Sean spoke about at length about, you know, some good strategies about identifying, you know, quality people and how to identify them, and then once we get them in, to make sure that we get the onboarding process done in the right way, and that the training happens regardless of what schedule demands happen because of other schedule gaps provided by, you know, full-time, regularly fully trained employees, that to maintain the training process. So have you guys, you know, I still see, yeah, it seems like you guys have gotten a lot better as a group using kind of Mike's system that he had in place about putting all that information in one, so that's fantastic. You know, we've got Kelly here who's in the middle of training. I think so far your training has been very regimented and very scheduled, which is positive. But you know, I do think it's been a huge improvement since then. So keep it going and don't let. We're still not at perfect, right? So if there's anything that we can add along the way that we think is going to be, you know, valuable to the group that you see works for your thing, bring it to these meetings and bring it. Let's keep the training ongoing on that.
Rob, can I
Yeah, of course.
I think it'd be good for Kelly, even though you're new to us, you're that fresh set of eyes. So I think it would be good after your training, then to summarize and say, here's what I thought was great, and here's where areas of opportunity, so we can go back and adjust that. Because if we do that every single time, we can, you know, optimize that manager training process and translate it into staff training. So let's remember to get just at the end kind of, you know, areas we missed and areas that we nailed. So
You got it.
A couple of other key points with the pre-shifts, which we mentioned, and there were some thoughts on the pre-shift about getting more tastings into the pre-shifts, those 5-minute tastings. You don't have to wait for 15 of your staff members to be available to train somebody. You train those 3 or 4 people in front of you, doing like a whiskey of the week or a wine of the week, and train that whiskey or that wine at every, you know, dinner pre-shift or every lunch pre-shift, working those into service notes. I would prefer that I see the service notes go out on schedule fly every week, so that when Stephen and I come through the venues, we know what the service points were for that week, so we don't have to be at a pre-shift to know, and I think that can be a lot more consistent. There are some places that do it a little bit more consistently than others, but I think that should be SOP. Once your service notes are established for that week, it should be schedule fly automatically, so everybody gets it, and those people who haven't had a pre-shift yet that week, say if they're working Wednesday as their first shift, that schedule fly note goes out on Tuesday, already coming in that mindset of, I better, you know, make sure I'm squared away on these items I'm going to be focused on this week. We talked about wine training, fantastic. Sean made a great point, which I was going to bring up. It's knowledge that we can share to everybody. We talked about contests, tastings. You know, probably still don't have contests going on in the bars. Mike does them kind of like on a daily basis for per shift. Highlights things that come from the kitchen or on his like high inventory stock list. It's like, let's move these items. Works very well with his culinary team to do that. I think he definitely sees movement when he's saying, yo, culinary team really needs us to push that pork chop. Like, you gotta do them a favor, you gotta push that pork chop. And you get that team spirit mentality going that, like, you know, they feel like they can help out the culinary team, where they probably feel like most of the time they're the ones putting the culinary team in the shits. This is their opportunity to step up and do something for them. And, you know, it's amazing how the servers do take that to heart. And then I think a big one for us is the wine pairing guide, which we talked about, but I don't think has been produced yet. So if we can get moving on that wine pairing guide as a guide that we have almost in the same format of a allergy menu, just take your food menu and do a wine pairing guide. It doesn't have to be too exhaustive. Just put 3 wines that can pair with every dish. Put it together and hand it out as a training material. And your least knowledgeable servers are going to at least have the power of minimal knowledge to go to a table and say, all right, this I know, I memorized, blah, 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 blah. And then lately, we've had some doozies of negative complaints. Overall, we've been doing a fantastic job about hitting really high marks across the board on our ratings platforms, but the internal communications have caught some really big problems, and big problems are an opportunity. So these big problems should be pre-shift. Hey guys, this is where we failed last time. We're not pointing fingers anymore. We look at it as an opportunity. We failed in our training process of where we all fell short on being able to tackle these problems in a positive way on the spot. But going forward, if these things happen again, we can't fail again. using these complaints and negative experiences to train for future positive interaction. I think that's huge. We've had some really guests that have actually been extremely good to us, and the fact that they've come to us and been so crazily negative about their experience and how they're set up, but they haven't put them on the review sites. So awesome. This is an opportunity. It's a huge opportunity for us. But we haven't lost the points in the eyes of our other customers, but we've gotten some real low blows from our customers. So please take these as learning opportunities for us, for all of us. You know, I kind of had, you know, I got my comeuppance this week. Sean got a little comeuppance this week. We've all had a little bit of a rough go trying to recover some customers, and we learned some stuff along the way. Some people may be unrecoverable, but at least they're learning to.
And just to piggyback that, so it's like the thank you email, right? It's just the simple act that a lot of people are like, oh, it's a tedious task at the end of the night, but without that tool, we're not catching these and we're not recovering these, and they're going to review sites. And we all know once you drop below, like trademarks at 4 or 5, you want to keep that, right? And once you drop below that 4, you're in big trouble. And so we worked hard to get Parker and Quinn back above 4. Roof we're working on every day, but the roof reviews have been there. So it's like, you know, but those thank you emails, just sending those things out every day as cut, copy, paste, all that, it's saving our asses on a lot of these reviews. So it's like, please and thank you for doing that. Let's just keep it going, because it's just another tool in the tool belt to catch that stuff. So Stephen doesn't have to.
Yeah, and some guests are going to be unrecoverable, but for the most part, I think if you're showing empathy, you're giving an opportunity to them to show what we can do. I think people appreciate that. I mean, I've had negative experiences where I give the place, very rarely do I ever get to the point where I send an email, but I'll never review on a real website, but I'll send an email to them saying, voicing my, you know, frustration. And if they don't get back to me, that's where I start thinking about it. If they don't get back to me, or if they do get back to me, then I'm willing to, you know, give them another shot. So, good job with that. Keep that up. Cool.
Yeah, great.
Want to jump into the
Yeah.
fun stuff?
Yeah, so this is what we're calling this one, rules and regulations.
No, law and order.
Law and order, better. So we kind of asked you guys to bring some homework, and it's going to be a little bit of an open forum. But I think before we get into the nuts and bolts of what you guys have in front of you, the simplicity of what do you do when an inspector comes on site, and not what you do, because 99% of the time, unfortunately, the people who know the most are not going to be the one to see the inspector, the first person. So what are we doing to empower those employees who may be the first line of defense, whether they're hosts, probably? What tools are we giving them to put the restaurant in the best possible position to do well for an inspection? And you know, very, very lucky that Chef Haskell's here. The amount of time, 90 seconds to 3 minutes, can save on notification to our ability to be very successful in inspection is worth more than gold, right, Jeff?
Yeah. Seconds.
Seconds. Literally 90 seconds can be the difference. So what tools do we have in place, especially at times when we know we're under the gun for inspection cycles? I know Trademark has got the radios going in a coffee shop. That's a new policy there, which I think is amazing. Does every host stand have the binder? Do you guys have a binder? Okay. One policy we put in place in some of the other restaurants is empowering the host with the binder. So when the inspector may or may not identify themselves with the host, but if they do identify themselves with the host, or the host realizes that they are, that they can say, yes, please let me get my I'll be right back to get my manager, or here's a binder. Open up the binder to any kind of page and say, you know, in here you'll find all of our certifications, blah, 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 blah. So, you know, you'll go around the restaurant and start looking on your walls to click off. If it's all in the binder, your binder has every single person that works in that restaurant a copy of their food handler's permit, gives them something to look at. It may not slow down an inspector, but it may. It's worth the shot,
A lot of
right?
times it does.
Yeah, a lot of times it does.
I have a question about that, because we were talking about this today. The food permits.
Yes.
I've heard both. You have to have physical and copies. Do we know the answers to that?
I was heard you had to have it on.
I've always heard that too.
I never had an issue with just a copy.
Yeah.
I haven't had an issue with this copy, but it's been a long time since I've been the only person on site with
I'll follow
food
up.
handlers permit.
Yeah, I'll follow up.
So I was-
I was a copy too, but because we had a file of all our managers' copies just in case they didn't have it on there.
Also, it's important, if anyone has a physical copy in the restaurant, it's applicable, and they don't have to be the person to walk the inspection. So if you have, no, as long as someone's on site with the food handler's certificate, anyone can walk the site, anyone can walk, so that if I'm the GM and I don't have my, if they don't want to accept the copy that I have, but the sous chef has the physical card, they say, oh, your card holder's here, and say, Inspector, I'm gonna do the walk with you, I'm the GM, or I'm the manager, I wanna do the walk with you, they're never gonna say no, they just wanna get through their inspection.
There's a number that they can call to verify. So if you have your New York State driver's license, and they can verify that it's you, they should be able to contact somebody to find out if you have a food handler's permit. That's what they had done in the
But for
past.
us, we get ahead of that, everyone that has a food handler permit,
Yes.
makes a copy of it, and goes in the binder.
Correct.
And Kelly, you have
I do.
food handler permit? So from there should be a notification process to the kitchen and to the staff to get that word out, whether it's a buzzword or, and mostly it's Chef Haskell, who's culinary director, will work with the GMs about setting a policy, whether, through the POS makes the most sense, or through the radio, or the buzzword, or, I don't know if you want to talk about that.
Yeah, I don't have to, we can just say, Department of Health is here for a manager. We don't have to, it's not illegal to shout it out. Not literally.
Yeah, I also think it's important to let staff know that it's no reason to panic whatsoever, but move with a purpose, move quickly. But it shouldn't be,
The place is on fire.
Yeah,
Right.
it's a normal process that we have to go through as restaurateurs. And staff should feel comfortable that we're doing our due diligence. That's why we're here now. And our kitchen does their due diligence, and we should all be on the same page with that. So it's no reason to just flip out, but at the same time, we definitely want to move quickly. We want to get the information downstairs quickly. And I think that's perfect to say. Department of Health is on site.
Yeah.
And be friendly. And that starts with the host too. I mean, that can turn that interaction, that first interaction that you meet, first impression, just like anything else in the restaurant business, is if they see a smile, you greet them with a smile. There's nothing wrong with that. We do not have to be afraid.
They should be treated like a guest.
Yeah, exactly.
And handled.
Just
Handle, I think that's perfect.
going back to what you said about
But we
a
also
few
can't,
seconds making a
We
difference.
can't
or-
offer anything to the
Correct.
staff.
Really?
No.
They won't take it.
Yeah, no, you can't even offer water.
So like Parker and Quinn, for example, they come in the back door, right? So
Yeah.
the best scenario is they are guided to the basement where we keep the binder, and then the kitchen is cleaned out while they're in the basement. Best case scenario. So it can
Yeah,
also
on
be,
site.
it can be a strategic placement as well. Like that might work at Park Avenue Tavern also, where it's if the binder's in the basement, they're guided to the basement, the kitchen gets cleaned, and then generally the prep areas are easier to get in order.
We found out in our meeting that the only thing you can ask them to see their badge. You are allowed to ask them, but it could also piss them off, so it's a slippery slope. But that's the one thing you're allowed to say, like, oh, can I just see your badge? And then it might send the whole thing downhill. But that's the another way you can slow them down if you're throwing options at them and you get something
It could be
else.
best case scenario, and then if they're going straight for the kitchen, then you could throw out the last stop.
Do they have to put on, does the badge have to be out, their uniform? They can go to the kitchen kind of incognito, right?
Now, yes.
Oh, they can?
Because I've seen that where they take the hat and they put it on after they arrive.
They can walk straight in, they don't have to say.
They don't have to announce
They don't have to
themselves, they just walk right into the
Yeah.
kitchen. Once they start the inspection, they have to announce themselves.
Right,
But when they
okay.
enter the premise,
They don't.
They
So
don't.
I thought they had to.
they used to be that way.
Do you want to talk about quickly? You were about to say how.
Yeah, and this wasn't even something we thought to train with our hosts, but she just did it on her own. And talking about how every second makes a difference, our host actually, when she realized it was the health inspector, and Jesse was there, and he was dealing with the person and notified the kitchen, she went up to him preemptively and said, would you like me to guide you to where you can put your bag down? and walked him around
Nice.
the bar to a high top table, and he said, "Yeah, absolutely, I would love you to do that." So she walked him all the way around,
I can
and
see it.
that was like another
It's actually in Rag Trader.
15, 20 seconds.
Because they always do have bags.
Yeah.
Right,
That's interesting.
that's very good, love that.
That's wonderful. Way to go.
And then when that happened, who radioed, did the kitchen get the warning or?
One of the baristas had already realized it, so she went downstairs as well as radioing. Jesse was there as well. She was able to radio the kitchen.
Who was that?
She walked him around. Darlene.
Way to go down you.
I think also we always need to remember about the guests who are waiting for food. I just have a plan in place for them. You know, it's not, you know, my first reaction when they come in, but, you know, if you got guests waiting for food, then we have to, you know, massage that in some way, I think. You know, it's a little bit easier, I guess, on the roof because we have another option downstairs, but have a backup plan or, you know, something in mind.
Yeah, 'cause we stop kitchen operations during health department inspections.
But we're also we're not supposed to let the health inspector know that. Is that
Correct.
right? So you've got to kind of pretend like, because that was also happening in the grind where people were walking in. They're like, we're closed. No, we're not closed. I have drip coffee right now or drip coffee. So
If you
that's,
say closed and people see health department inspector, they're gonna think that's something bad happened.
well, also I think it was PQ's inspection, the Friday morning massacre, where they the health inspector said you're not closed or something like that. I forget what the comment was, like, you're not closed.
Yeah, they said, they told us to keep operating.
Yeah, so sure, we'll deal at the front, but we don't want the inspector to know that we've, started diverting.
Most time customers, they get it. If you go around, hey, we're going through an inspection, they understand it. They're pretty, just gotta make sure you tell them.
Yeah, that's what's important, was you're not acting like, a crazy lunatic, because the more lunatic you're acting, then the customers will be like, what are these people doing? What are they doing? Like, what are they doing when the health inspector's not here?
Right.
Poisoning me.
Right.
And then from there, it's a matter of getting to your hot topics, right? Everyone should have a role that's role played and continuously trained about where the hot topics are for their position. Bussers have places where they should go to take care of hot topics. Bartenders and barbacks should have places where they go to take care of hot topics. Servers, obviously kitchen. So there are things that are the most heavily scrutinized, or things that Department of Health is always going to look at. And if we go around the room, and maybe you guys can think of some things off the top of your head, and then Stephen has the most commonly cited violations ready to go. But maybe Brendan, you want to start? We'll hop around.
Well, front of house, I think obviously ice being out. We, I think, have it a little easier in the sense of having the two levels. So when the health inspector comes in, and twice now they go right for the kitchen, we have all that time upstairs to kind of address.
Now, when you say
any
ice being
issues.
out, explain more. Like ice wells.
Yeah,
Contamination.
right.
You can't have anything in
You
there.
can't have anything in the wells.
Right.
Right.
Got it, okay.
The ice has to be clean.
Right. Scoops.
Right. Wine bottles.
Right.
Do you operate with a well that's where things are that aren't in compliance, that's not already labeled, not fit for, the site's not for consumption?
No, there's nothing that's not in compliance, but it's constantly have to be monitored.
Okay.
If you get a little sprinklage of anything, like tea, a tea cocktail,
Right.
anything, a little tea gets in the ice.
And then ice machines also, right?
Sure.
Yeah, the ice machines, they can pull the panels off, as you guys found out. It's one of those things that they pull the machine out behind it, and they look for mold. They're looking for mold anywhere they can find it.
They're taking pictures.
The porters can clean that, but we do have to schedule professional ice machine cleanings, interior cleanings. And yeah, they are taking photos.
They're taking photos of it, right? With their phones right up.
So some other hot topics that I think are important are your hand wash sinks with signage, paper towels, and soap. That's like an easy. That's a layup, if you will.
Moving it around.
Oh, I'm sorry. I
Sorry.
thought.
We can go Mac then next.
I was just trying to keep it moving along. Wink, wink.
Oh, you want me to go faster? Okay, no problem.
I was gonna
I
say
get it.
the standing buckets, how they all need to be, you know, the bus bins and the cloth needs to be completely submerged.
What is the liquid that goes into the sanding buckets? There is a formula,
It's a
right?
certain solution that goes into it, and then to make sure that we have test strips if we want to test it ourselves, just to make sure that it's up to par.
Do we know the solution ratio?
100 parts per million.
Yeah, PQ, they have there's a machine that dispenses.
It automatically,
Yeah,
yeah, it automatically does it.
Got it.
Those still come out of calibration.
All right, in an effort to move it along, we'll just jump right in. Sorry. I get the hint.
All right.
Pretend like we're at an inspection. Go.
You want to take a rope?
Oh, sure. A few violations count for nearly 2/3 of all citations. By avoiding these lapses, the restaurant can improve its grade and help prevent foodborne illnesses. Facility not vermin-proof, harborage of other conditions conducive to pest infestation. It's pretty obvious. The one thing to note here is that in the minds of the health department, a fruit fly and a rat are equal. 5 to 7 points, generally 5 points. One fruit fly is 5 points, the second fruit fly is 6 points, third fruit fly is 8 points. They get you for every single fruit fly if they wanted to. And they go up till 10, 10's the max. So you could have 100,000 fruit flies and only get 10 points off it.
Then obviously a live rodent is much worse than
Yeah.
a dead rodent.
Yep.
Right?
I think that's the difference between 7 and 5.
Well, actually being shut down as well.
Yeah.
Shut down for 2.
So you can read through these things about some preventive measures. Obviously you couldn't, it's just doing basic cleaning. It's the best thing you do, but the rodent-proof door sweeps because we live in a city that has lots of friends. Improperly constructed, unacceptable material used, non-food contact service, equipment improperly maintained. There you go again, similar thing. Improper temperature holding of food, right? So, we may think that a lot of this falls on the back of the house, but we have plenty of opportunity on the front of the house to fail on this as well, including and most especially your milk fridges. Right?
Very common.
Yeah, very common.
Quarts of milk by the espresso machine.
And then as well, your refrigerators behind the bar, if you're keeping any spoilage items back there, whether they're, syrup or a concoction for a cocktail or some other thing, properly made, proper labeled, proper refrigeration, dated, all that stuff needs to happen.
Can I just touch on
Yeah, of course,
that?
yeah.
I was told that any open milk to be thrown away. Is that?
Get rid of it. Yeah, absolutely.
The food temperature is why the kitchens need as much time as possible to get rid of evidence. Right? So there's things that just need to be thrown out.
And opening and closing, does that affect temperature?
Absolutely.
Right, so like if you can avoid opening the refrigeration doors during this time, do, by all means do. I mean, if we have to get rid of stuff.
I know in the coffee bar, they've been keeping a log of like what the temperature is when they first open and then like middle of the day, end of the day, and it's just a log of every day for, since the last inspection, I guess. Just to kind of touch base on that.
If we're on the radar, the kitchen should be started using ice bags on top of everything. If the inspector sees an ice bag, they won't even temp it. So I know that mostly applies to the kitchens, but
They won't temp it, mean they're gonna give a violation, or
If
they're
no.
gonna assume it's under.
they open a drawer and it's covered with ice bags.
Yeah.
The top of the food containers are covered with ice bags. They won't even look at it. They'll just close the drawer.
Got it.
Like ice is like the first line of defense, and also I know this is more kitchen, but not overfilling containers, right? Really touch on that.
Mhm.
So yeah, because it gets above that, yeah.
So if you guys ever like just happen to walk behind the line and see containers that are just mounded, like a trademark in the South Station, right? You might see that a lot. If someone just mounds a container, then just say something, just call the chef.
Start throwing ice on
Plumbing maintenance. These are important ones. Plumbing maintenance, backflow, sewage, and drainage problems. You know, some of our restaurants have areas where they can be prone to backup, especially around glass washing machines behind the bar, possibly around your dish pit or other areas. Just be very mindful of those areas and you know, get those to the fix email as soon as possible. If it's something that we can correct through, you know, that needs a correction, we'll do it. If it's something that just needs to be monitored or mopped up real quickly when the inspector comes, then we know it's on our go list.
Sweating pipes is a big one.
Sweating pipes.
That we get hit for all the time. Sweat on a pipe is considered wastewater.
It's like any of this stuff, similar to the sexual harassment, like make a notification as soon as you see something. So if you see a sweating pipe, don't let it become a broken pipe.
Food services not properly maintained, pretty obvious. You see a cutting board there, right? Cutting boards are usually a go-to spot for inspectors, and you know they're all scratched up and marked up. They don't like that. Other things like back up real quick. There's, you know, if you just on your like Steven said, when you're doing your rounds, if you see stuff that's chipped wood, chipped holes in walls, too much holes around pipes, right? You gotta foam that up. We've got some of any of the holes or nicks or scratches. If they really want to be, you know, they bust chops, they can.
Missing ceiling tiles.
The ceiling tiles, huge.
Yeah,
Even little ones around, cutouts around a pipe we get hit for.
Yeah.
Light fixtures, you know, cover light fixtures. Food not protected from contamination during storage, preparation, transportation, or display, right? Don't put, you know, raw food above, you know, fresh food or cooked food. Food protection certificate not held by supervisor. Can anyone tell me how many points are on your inspection if there's no food handler, no certified food handler on property?
Like 10.
10 points. 14 points is a B.
You're done. If that's not on, it's over.
Yeah.
It's not,
That happened at the park one time, right? When before we were open, they just came in.
Yeah.
But if we ever run into that situation, we have so many venues in the area, you just call someone else.
Yeah.
And just say that they were
See how they get it.
because they don't know if they're an employee of that particular venue or not.
Yeah, we see a food protection certificate.
and that's it for the,
So,
for the time.
grading system, 0 to 13 is an A, 14 to 27 is a B, 28 and plus is a C. As we all know, when you fail an initial inspection, they will come back to re-inspect. You have an opportunity to get an A at that re-inspection without a penalty. You can maintain your A grading, but it puts you on a 6-month cycle. If you pass on your first inspection, you are not due for about a year. And as chef will tell you that a year in the Department of Health, it's not a year anymore. They're generally, you're out on the radar about 10.5 months out, right, chef?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you put that on, you know, very important that you guys use your calendars to your advantage. That when you get an inspection, that immediately goes on your Google Calendar. DOH inspected us on this date, and then put an alert according to what happened. According to what happened on your inspection.
Pardon me,
Bless
sorry.
you. Put an inspection that makes sense. Like, so 4 months out, there should be an alert at trademark from 4 months from the other day when you got the re-inspection for your egg. It just puts a blast out there, and then on your weekly meetings, that becomes a hot topic. You know, if you pass right away, about 10 months, 9.5 months, you put that on your Google Calendar to send the alert to all your managers. Hot button areas, soda guns, hot button areas, standing water we mentioned, milk temps we mentioned, bar items, which tend to be neglected.
The holsters too.
Yeah, the soda guns and the holsters. CPR kits and the sign for CPR kits. The glass wash machine temp and the test strips. They're important that you guys have that. We always recommend just taping those test strips inside the, next on the machine, so you never have to worry about finding it. Any others you guys can think of that you guys have been hit for
So
consistently?
we hit the hand washing signs, but also any sort of debris in the hand wash stand is a critical violation too.
Good point.
So I have always looking like inside the drain of the hand wash sink.
They put this up the thing we went to. We had to put no vaping signs up.
Oh, yeah.
No what?
No
No
vaping.
Well, the
No
new
smoking, no
smoking
vaping.
signs
E-cigarettes.
say including no
E-cigarettes.
electronic cigarettes.
So let's check our
You
venues
gotta
if we
type
need
that
ones,
out.
get new ones. And then I've got ice not for consumption signs because of the server, self-service wells in like PQ and trademark, so that's another thing to monitor, make sure you always have those signs in place.
And then impeding an inspection, 28 points to C, automatically. So, delay as much as you can, but if you get that friction of I just need to proceed my inspection, 28 points for impeding an inspection.
Holy smokes, yeah.
And then the most pleasant people.
Like maybe two that have, 2 to 3 that have been complete jerks, but some of them are just.
Just treat it like
Certain
you're a
areas.
nightmare customer
Yeah.
and just try to turn them. There's no empathy that you can provide, but you can be friendly.
Any unique aspects to your venues that are like tricky, like super tricky above, what's happening in the other venues? Mike, are you still able to close that
That's the back door.
the back door? You able to close that and lock that like we used to be able to do?
That's what I'm really not sure. We did, and this is the first time they actually went through. Then they checked the dairy fridges.
How did we get back there?
They asked us if they can go through. At first I said no.
You didn't say it was hotel.
What's
It's not
that?
our space.
It also looks a lot better back there
Yeah,
too.
big time.
It really
Yeah.
wasn't an issue, but
I basically just lied the one time. He was like, "What's back there?" I was like, "No, it's
I
not."
think that's what it was. When I said it wasn't, and then someone else came
He's
and
like,
went.
"Where's your storage room?" I said, "Oh, it's down the block at the Refiner Hotel. We just opened it."
Because we used to have Jimmy go down there and lock it.
Yeah.
Stay there.
Put a king back there.
Yeah.
Side door.
Mike's, did you say, you're like, there's nothing back there, and somebody walks through
Yeah.
carrying stuff?
That's the worst. Yeah.
Fix you right there. It's not us. People running out. And they're like, "What's going on?" I was like, "Ah, it's a dairy fridge."
Here we go.
I know
We
you
also
meant.
had the time we locked everything in the closet in the office, all the fruit. And he's like, "What's in there?" And we were like, "Nothing. It's just files and computers." He's like, "All right, can I get in there?" And we were like, "No, I'm okay." He's like, "All right, well, I can't leave until I get in there." I'm like, all right, we try to call. And I just started pretending to call like Jeff and Terrence. I'm like, "Yo, can you guys bring the key?" "All right, you're in Rockaway?" All right, 2 hours? Okay. And he waited.
No.
So he went and sat and waited, and then I picked the door with a butter knife and took all the stuff out. And I was like, "All right, I gotta go."
Oh my God.
You put a sign on the door saying property of.
I mean, your
channel
channels don't
or-
really keep fruits and
Emergency
stuff in
exit
there.
only.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
what did we, we did a trademark, or
Did a libation too. We had a couple
what's it,
of-
electrical closet, chef?
Yeah, but if they want to get in, they're gonna get in.
Right.
Yeah, of course.
And trademark's a pretty unique situation.
Yeah, that's either a blessing or a curse, depending on how it plays out with the sub-seller.
And if your ducks are in a row, there's nothing to hide.
It should always be in order.
And Brendan, every one of your team members has food handler's permit at this point?
I do, Warren does.
Chris?
I don't believe Chris does.
Mike?
The veterans does.
No, does Chris have one? Do you remember?
Keegan should have his, right?
Mike's looking now. Let's follow up on it, Sean. And then Mike, your whole team has it?
Yep.
Awesome.
Kelly, we just put into it.
Kev, I think your whole team.
Oh, yeah, for the double check.
Yeah. Yeah, I gotta check with steps.
Francesca again?
That's a good question.
I mean,
Well, she had the test scheduled, I remember. when she
I heard that.
You just need to
but
have
that's
like
like
shit
shit
in
in
order,
order,
right? We don't have to have serve safe.
Yeah, just no sort of safety, you don't need to say.
It never has to be renewed, so.
Which is crazy, so it doesn't have to get reviewed.
That's
That's insane. And also great.
And also-
that place you guys.
I think
Exactly.
Kirsch
That place
has
can
one.
help.
Kirsch has one.
Which venues have radios? You guys have radios? Roof has radios.
We have radios now, and we have the bell ones. they're hosting it too.
So, like, if we're gonna just go like recap this and like go in step 1 through 4 and what we do as soon as they get there, is it a text? Like, you guys are using radios. If you're not using radios, what's the process for them to get information?
Because the host is usually the first person.
Yeah.
Who's gonna hit the bell. The kitchen has to know first.
Okay,
And
so
then
is
you
it
gotta
a
communicate to the
code
manager.
on the bell, or they know that that's specifically for the
It's
department?
almost for the bell, right? You hit it, it goes to the kitchen.
Great.
Have you tested that recently?
Yeah, I was gonna say.
We just upped it. We got a new one last time for the whole section. I'll retest it.
Just, yeah, of course, you know.
Then how does the general manager get notified other than that's gonna
On
go?
the iPad, they could text.
Got it.
To us, they report also.
Okay. And then trademark, Parker and Tavern, Parker and Quinn, radios and Parker and Quinn.
We do have radios, but we haven't been used too often lately, though. We gotta
Because
get
you
back
have
on
two
that.
entries, it's tricky.
Yeah, I mean, we rely on WhatsApp.
Okay.
We can send out an SOS email, and we have the 86 Brian Moss button.
Can we start with radio? Have manager start with radio?
Where radio?
Yeah, I think it's
During the
really
day.
Because we have the blockade shelf.
Yeah.
That's, slow them down,
I'll have Charlie start running radio also.
but yeah, I think it's probably a good idea.
And we have radios, so it's more like the kitchen communicating us, so.
Right.
For us to let the kitchen.
Okay, so let's take inventory of your radios and see what you guys need.
I think that would be great, because your first step is friendly greeting, then you have a way to communicate that everybody's pretty much on the same page. You have backup, you have a radio, you have backup with text, you have WhatsApp, you have SOS email, and you have the app. And then once everybody's notified, the kitchen is shutting down service, and everybody's going to their specific action plan, hot topic areas. And the manager will be escorting, the most senior manager will be escorting Department of Health through the inspection.
Fake an injury. Love me, I'll show you right back. Oh my god.
Next inspections that we all deal with would be fire department inspection. And the most common one would be the public assembly inspection. So for those of, Brendan, I'm not as familiar with Hotel Waste Lake. Hotel Waste Lake have a fire safety director,
Yes, the engineers.
and someone's always on site.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Well, 2 of the 3 full-time engineers are fire safety directors. So it's likely that one of those 2 are on. We just had ours before the health inspection.
So, are you guys aware of what your, your occupancy thing should be right by your public assembly, right by the front door? Are you operating a floor plan that is contrary to what the official Department of Building, Public Assembly inspection
That's what we're going through right now.
record?
That's what we're going through right now.
You're trying to get that all fixed?
Also, inspection is scheduled, right?
No, it's not scheduled. That's good.
Wow.
So what is lucky for us is that if we are to fail public assembly inspection, our re-inspection can get scheduled through our connections at the New York City Fire Department. So we would deal with the violation process, submitting the paperwork that we got a violation, and we call John, FDNY, and he comes and inspects it himself. And then we basically we filed a notice of correction, and we're all good. But in order to pass it the first time, same thing, friendly greeting, they're not there to do any harm. At the hotels, Parker and Quinn and Refinery in particular, your out is, let me go get the hotel fire safety director. Bring them to the lobby of Refinery Hotel, because they're used to going to hotels and going to walk through the fire safety director. Even though Damien has nothing to do with our PA inspection walkthroughs, Damien is a team player when it comes to compliance, because he'd rather us be in compliance than not compliance, and he will come up. And in that time, Parker and Quinn and Refinery should have Rooftop should have enough time to get your floor plans in a semblance of compliance, because there are some things that we have in how we operate in those 2 venues where we're not according to the floor plans. So that's going to be the new SOP going forward. Anytime there's a PA inspection for the fire department,
the host is gonna notify the manager, and the manager is gonna say, please let me get my fire safety director, and I will get my Department of Buildings plans out of his office. And they're happy to wait. Now, they may notice, if they walk through Parker and Quinn, that your table configuration might be different than when they come back 10 minutes, 5 minutes later. And maybe they look the other way, maybe they don't, but,
They give leeway too, like if they know, like if you have a buyout, for example, do they say this doesn't match the floor plan?
no, generally not.
Right, they're gonna,
As
you
long as
say
they're
like, here's our
blocked-
tables, we cleared it out.
Movable, and you're
Right.
not blocking, you're not blatantly blocking egresses, which is what we do at Parker and Quinn. We operate for lunch and dinner with blatantly blocked main egress.
Right.
So that's probably the biggest problem that we have there. And then it's really not that big of a deal. It's worth touching on. I think that worth saying for you guys, go to the fire safety director. And then the other things that they do is they go into the kitchen, right? They're gonna do an Ansel inspections. They're doing hood range inspections. Does everybody know how to read those tickets on your hood range, the stickers and the tickets on the fire suppression system? There's a ticket on your fire suppression system, and then on your hood there's a sticker. That's going to tell you when your last inspection, when your inspection is up. Hopefully, we're working with our Durno on a regular inspection process. The thing that you normally get hit on is the caps. The caps pop off. Even the metal caps pop off. So,
And after the hoods are clean, someone should verify that Durno filled out the sticker correctly, because we're getting dinged for that recently.
That's a great point.
that's a good point. Anything else worth noting on those inspections?
Fire extinguisher tags, Ansel tags, caps.
Yeah.
Do we have a service that comes in and does that? Is it that company that does it regularly, or is it something that we have to keep up on and then have them recharged?
It's on, hood cleaning is on a calendar, and the Ansel inspections for,
Yeah.
I think you handle it for.
Total fire does the extinguishers, so yeah. So
Okay.
these did ours, like.
Yeah, and Maggie handles for the hotels.
Cool.
And then just on the flip side, just quickly, is you gotta watch out for the company that calls and says, hey, I'm gonna inspect your fire extinguishers, I'll be there tomorrow, whatever. That's also a phishing scam
Yeah.
where they want you to pay for their services even though you don't need it. So
Ansel inspection also.
Ansel inspection, yeah. So you'll get a lot of those calls like, hey, you're up for inspection, and they're just wanting you to go, okay.
Wow.
I know we're off it, but more of the health, fault, posters.
Yeah,
We call it that on the park.
Oh yeah, we
They
have.
come everywhere, we kept kicking them out.
I kicked those guys.
I ran for park to PQ, like, for because of those guys.
Yeah, idiots.
Jeff, I'm sorry, you said after the Durno cleaning, make sure the sticker is correct? Is that right?
And then the last, not the last, for the rooftop, we deal with another inspection with the fire department. It's called a high rise. It's part of like operating a hotel. They do a high rise inspection, and those are the ones that have been the most vigilant about hitting us on those back hallways and means of egress. I don't know if you guys have seen them, that specific division in Les Soleil as well. I assume they won't probably, there's not too much overlap because we're operating in the basements and ground level, but for the rooftop in particular, that's the one that we want to get in next. High rise, see the back hallways clean, and give us that clean bill of health. That's going to take us off that nagging thing that's popping up every 8 months. So that's the one we really have to look out for, is high rise. When high rise comes, those hallways have to be completely empty. And then the last one is Department of Sanitation. And we have some differences in this at this table about level of scrutiny and what restaurants need to do to comply. Trademark and Refinery operate in a hotel with more than 150 rooms, so we have a deeper level of compliance than Park Avenue Tavern does. And for us, we have to make sure that we're separating organic waste completely, and have all our proper signage, and have our bids that snap shut tightly. Brendan, our chef, really can speak to what level of scrutiny. Fortunately, Sean Tuberty
does work in the office of the Commissioner of Sanitation, and he has been able to provide us with an advance notification. If an inspector does come to your property and you haven't been given a notification, you have to text Sean Tucker. Kelly, you don't have his text, you don't have his number yet, but
No.
give it to Mike will share that to you, you have to text him.
Okay.
More than likely, he's gonna be able to call off that inspector, but yo, get out of there.
Okay.
Go inspect someplace else, come back in half an hour,
Okay,
right?
Yep.
But you have to do it.
okay.
And for Mike, you're separating organics, right? I mean, not organics, sorry, recyclables, paper and commingled.
When do we do organics? 2019?
I don't know.
Is that coming?
It's ways off.
But not organics yet, organics can separate.
And for us, it's organics. And you guys have any questions about that? I would encourage you guys to just do weekly walkthroughs to make sure your signage doesn't get misplaced, because a lot of them are in areas that are high traffic and can get bumped around. And your garbage cans, what I've seen in some places, is your garbage cans get switched around. So what you normally would put where your normal garbage goes, all of a sudden it's a recycling, it's a organics can that's there, and it's mislabeled. So you're gonna get dinged on it. So just make sure that your proper containers are under your proper labels and your proper spots. The Slim Jims the porters can mix them around because they don't have the same level of understanding or caring of where things need to go. It's important to have that.
I think like take a Bruce Con work on it too. Can we like put something together we all work on? I just think cosmetically it looks like shit. If we can put either some kind of case in these garbage areas where the signs are. Like if you guys go to Equinox, they had everything's labeled and they had everything in case. It's more cosmetic than
Takes a lot longer.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah,
just cover the Slim Jims. Or?
Yeah, no, I should, especially the roof is, that area during lunch is a lot of Slim Jims like out in public view.
I think Howard's building something for that.
Yeah. Sanitation, I think, is an area that we can all work on. I see, just rolling around, I see a lot of improper garbage, improper vessels everywhere.
So if you guys want me to come do a walkthrough with you at any time, I'll come do a walkthrough, we'll take notes, and I'll help you if there's anything that you need as far as like more garbage cans, more signage, different, I'm more than happy to do it. Come and insist on that.
It's just daily reinforcement of the staff of what goes where, I think.
Does sanitation, like, do they break balls about, well, I was gonna say like just garbage that don't make it in? Like would they, let's say like napkins or the side of it didn't make it to either container?
No. They're most important about labeling
Okay.
and then organics. They find any organic material waste that's improper, they have no leeway on that.
Even if it's like a
Yeah,
we saw
like
like
a
a
mushroom.
mushroom that made its way. But
Yeah.
I didn't know if that was every inspector, that was that, because it was so new at that
I
time.
think that's where their scrutiny is on organics.
Real quick, another thing, just going back to DOH with the organics, they, at Parker and Quinn last inspection, we got dinged because the smaller buckets that we have in the stations in the kitchen were not covered, which we're still working on a solution. But if we get a health inspection, we gotta get rid of those small buckets first. The small green buckets that we're using on each station, like at Trademark also. So they dinged us for not having those covered. So it's something
Like
that,
behind the salad line on the roof.
yeah, so we gotta get rid of those when we get health inspection.
And we need one behind the bar also.
How are you doing with organics?
I mean, just, they usually take the plates and put them to the other one, but.
It's really just your garnishes that are coming out of your dump sink.
Yeah.
But, any kind of like food from the bar, or, leftover stuff like that, I mean, it usually goes to the back, but.
For different rules on that, right?
Yeah, I mean, technically they can ding you on that, like your fruit that you're cutting for your garnishes that ends up, your dump sink that you have your colander there that collects it so it doesn't clog up your drains. That technically needs to go into an organics bucket to go into that with your organics waste.
And it should be covered,
Oh my God,
which is an operational,
nightmare,
right?
yeah.
Generally behind the bars is inspection is going to be one of the last places they go to.
Yeah.
So hopefully you can remember to tighten that thing up.
They have been going into the garbage rooms and ripping bags open, they're going through the offices.
Yes.
Really?
Yeah,
And also
also
the
garbage
garbage
cans are a big one.
Like if you're in an organics property, you can't throw your sandwich away in the garbage can and take it, compost it. All office is like a easy way for them to things.
Yeah, the offices need to have a way of, you know, or if you just have garbage in your office and anything else, just walk out to a bucket. somewhere
Yeah,
else
and you still have to label the garbage cans in the office.
Yeah.
And the fines accelerate.
Yes, the fines accelerate. So your first fine is $250, and then your second fine will be $500, and then you go up to like $5,000, which is the same.
So it's almost, sanitation could almost potentially be even worse than DOH.
Yeah.
And then,
And they don't have a regular inspection cycle, so just because they visited you last week, doesn't mean they won't come next week. Now, just think about it, right now, Department of Sanitation might have like 14 inspectors. They're so overwhelmed, but the rumor is that Department of Sanitation regulations are gonna eventually get put on the Department of Health to inspect. And that's gonna be a real big pain in the ass for us. Because they already have the manpower in place for inspect every restaurant in the city. I think the city wants to spend all this money to hire a whole new set of inspectors to handle new regulations. They're just gonna combine it.
yay, city.
Making those people even happier.
And we covered a lot of topics, you know, thank you guys for hanging in there. It was great for Stephen to arrange having that HR expert. She did a really nice job. Yeah.
There's still the PowerPoint, so we have it, you know.
Yeah.
Did you?
Nice.
Yeah.
Oh, it's great.
We have the future, no, she was happy to share that, because that's an important topic for everybody. I mean, it's all good stuff.
Any guys have any questions, any thoughts, anything else to add?
What's the next one?
Ugh, have to look.
Yeah,
I think it's
fine,
a
I
little
wanna
more
know.
fun than today's, but I don't remember exactly what it was.
There we go. Hold on one second. Been waiting to do this the whole time. There we go. Thank you very much. Here's that.
I'll send an email. I'll let you guys know what it is.
Thank you.
All right, thank you all for coming.
Thanks.
Lauren, thank you. I know you're on an incredibly long day right now, right? She's like, I may end up taking the day off. Yeah. Oops. Might not be anything in the city.